Have you ever noticed that some pain never truly leaves? You tell yourself you've moved on. You convince yourself you're healed. Years pass, your life changes, new people enter your world, and new experiences fill your days. Yet somehow, one unexpected moment can bring it all rushing back. A song, a memory, a familiar place, a quiet night when your thoughts become too loud, and suddenly, the pain returns as if it never left. Why? Why do certain wounds refuse to stay buried? Why do some lessons keep repeating themselves throughout our lives? And perhaps the most important question of all, what if the pain that keeps returning isn't your enemy? What if it is trying to teach you something you have not yet understood? More than 2,500 years ago, Lao Tzu understood a truth that many people still struggle to see. Life does not repeat lessons because it wants to punish us. Life repeats lessons because it wants to awaken us. And until we understand what our pain is trying to tell us, it will continue knocking on the door of our lives again and again. Most people believe that healing means forgetting. They imagine that one day the memory will disappear and the wound will stop hurting. They believe healing means reaching a place where the past has no power over them. But Lao Tzu would likely see things differently. True healing is not forgetting. True healing is understanding. You can bury a wound beneath years of distraction. You can convince yourself it no longer matters. But if you never understand it, it remains alive beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to return. This is why so many people experience the same pain in different forms throughout their lives. The faces change. The situations change. The stories change. Yet the feeling remains strangely familiar. The abandonment, the rejection, the loneliness, the betrayal, the feeling of not being enough. Different experiences, but the same wound. Imagine a river flowing around a large stone. Every day the water encounters the obstacle. Every day it returns to it. Not because the river enjoys suffering, but because the obstacle still exists. Human pain works in a similar way. Many people believe their suffering comes entirely from external events, but often the deepest suffering comes from internal wounds that were never fully understood. Life simply keeps bringing those wounds back into view. Lao Tzu believed that reality acts like a mirror. The world reflects what lives within us. This can be difficult to accept because it suggests that the pain we keep encountering may not be random. It may be revealing something unfinished inside us, something we have spent years trying to avoid. Think about your deepest pain. Perhaps it began long ago. Perhaps someone made you feel invisible. Perhaps someone left when you needed them most. Perhaps you learned that love could disappear without warning. Maybe you learned that your feelings didn't matter. Maybe you learned that being yourself wasn't enough. These experiences do not simply vanish. They become part of the lens through which you see the world. And without realizing it, you begin recreating the same pain. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because what is familiar feels safe, even when it hurts. This is one of the strangest truths about human nature. People often choose familiar pain over unfamiliar freedom. Lao Tzu understood that human beings cling to familiar patterns, even destructive ones. The mind prefers certainty over freedom. A painful certainty can feel safer than an uncertain possibility. This is why someone who experienced abandonment may repeatedly choose people who are emotionally unavailable. This is why someone who never felt worthy may spend years desperately seeking validation. This is why someone who was betrayed may struggle to trust even those who genuinely care. The wound continues creating the same reality, and the reality continues feeding the wound. The cycle repeats itself year after year until awareness finally enters the picture. Awareness is where transformation begins. Not blame, not guilt, not shame. Awareness. The moment you recognize the pattern, you begin stepping outside of it. For the first time, you stop asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single question changes everything. Victims search for reasons to suffer. Students search for lessons. Lao Tzu encouraged people to become students of life, to observe their experiences without resistance, to learn from them instead of fighting them. Have you ever watched your entire life fall apart? Not all at once, but piece by piece. A relationship ends. A dream collapses. A job disappears. A friendship fades away. A chapter of your life closes without asking for your permission. And suddenly, you find yourself standing in unfamiliar territory, staring at the ruins of what once felt certain. In those moments, it feels like life has betrayed you. It feels unfair. It feels cruel. You ask yourself questions that seem impossible to answer. Why is this happening? Why now? Why me? But what if the destruction isn't the end? What if life is not punishing you? What if it is preparing you? More than 2,500 years ago, Lao Tzu understood something that most people discover only through suffering. He understood that sometimes life must destroy what is no longer serving us before it can reveal what we were truly meant to become. And perhaps the most painful moments of your life are not signs that you are lost. Perhaps they are signs that you are being redirected. Nobody wants to start over. We want stability. We want certainty. We want the comfort of knowing what tomorrow will look like. Human beings naturally become attached to what is familiar, even when it no longer makes them happy, even when it limits their growth, even when it slowly drains the life from their spirit. We stay because familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. This is one of the deepest truths Lao Tzu understood about human nature. People resist change not because change is bad. They resist change because change requires letting go. And letting go feels like losing a part of ourselves. Imagine a tree in autumn. Its leaves begin to fall one by one. If the tree could think like a human being, it might panic. It might believe something terrible is happening. It might fight to hold on to every leaf. But nature understands something we often forget. Letting go is not the opposite of growth. It is part of growth. The tree must release what no longer belongs to it. Only then can new life emerge in spring. Lao Tzu often pointed to nature because nature never resists its own transformation. The river does not resist changing direction. The seasons do not resist change. The sky does not resist the passing storm. Only human beings cling to what has already ended. When life forces you to start over, the first thing it usually takes away is certainty. And certainty is something the ego desperately loves. The ego wants guarantees. It wants plans. It wants control. But life rarely gives us those things. Instead, life gives us uncertainty. And uncertainty feels terrifying because it exposes a truth we spend most of our lives trying to avoid. We were never truly in control. The future was always uncertain. We simply convinced ourselves otherwise. This is why starting over feels so painful. Not because we are losing reality, but because we are losing our illusion of control. The relationship you thought would last forever ends. The career you built suddenly changes. The future you imagined disappears. And now you must face a reality you never expected. You must begin again. Most people see this as failure. Lao Tzu saw it differently. He understood that beginnings often disguise themselves as endings. Think about every major transformation in your life. Every time you became stronger. Every time you gained wisdom. Every time you discovered something important about yourself. Did it happen during comfort? Or did it happen during uncertainty? For most people, the answer is obvious. Growth rarely happens when life is easy. Growth happens when life forces us into unfamiliar territory. Growth happens when our old identity can no longer survive. Growth happens when we are forced to become someone new. The caterpillar does not become a butterfly by improving itself. It becomes a butterfly by completely dissolving. Everything it once was disappears. Imagine how terrifying that process would seem if the caterpillar understood what was happening. It would believe it was dying. In reality, it was transforming. Human beings experience the same thing. Sometimes the person you are today must disappear so the person you are meant to become can emerge. But during the process, it feels like death. The death of certainty. The death of identity. The death of old dreams. the death of old versions of yourself. This is why so many people become stuck after life changes. They spend years mourning who they used to be, years wishing things would go back to the way they were, years fighting reality. But reality never moves backward. The river never flows upstream. The past never returns exactly as it was. And the more you resist change, the more suffering you create. Lao Tzu taught that peace comes not from controlling life but from flowing with it. That doesn't mean change isn't painful. It is. Losing something important hurts. Watching a dream disappear hurts. Being forced to leave behind a chapter of your life hurts. Lao Tzu never suggested we ignore pain. He suggested we stop fighting reality. There is a difference. Pain is natural. Suffering comes when we refuse to accept what already is. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that some things are meant to end. Not because they were mistakes. Not because they lacked value. But because their purpose has been fulfilled. The relationship served its purpose. The job served its purpose. The chapter served its purpose. And now life is asking you to move forward. Not because it hates you, but because it knows something you cannot yet see. When you're standing in the middle of a storm, it's impossible to understand where the path leads. Everything feels uncertain. Everything feels confusing. You want answers. You want reassurance. You want certainty. But life rarely reveals the entire path at once. It reveals only the next step. And often, that is enough. Lao Tzu said that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Most people hear those words and think they are about achievement. But perhaps they are actually about trust. Trusting the next step when you cannot see the entire road. Trusting yourself when your confidence has disappeared. Trusting life when nothing makes sense. Starting over forces you to meet yourself. Not the version others expect. Not the version you've been pretending to be. The real you. The person underneath the roles, underneath the labels, underneath the achievements, underneath the failures. And sometimes that encounter is uncomfortable. Because many people build their identity around things that can be taken away. A job, a relationship, a reputation, a goal. But when those things disappear, who are you? This question terrifies most people. Yet it is one of the most important questions life can ask. Perhaps life forces you to start over because it wants you to discover a deeper foundation. One that cannot be taken away. A foundation built not on circumstances but on character. Not on possessions but on wisdom. Not on success but on understanding. The deeper your foundation, the less life can shake you. Think about a mountain. Storms come. Rain falls. Winds roar. Seasons change. Yet the mountain remains. Lao Tzu admired this quality. Not because the mountain resists change, but because its strength comes from something deeper than temporary conditions. Human beings can develop the same inner stability, but only after life teaches them what truly matters. The strange thing about starting over is that eventually you begin seeing opportunities where you once saw only loss. New paths appear. New possibilities emerge. New people enter your life. New strengths reveal themselves. And one day you look back at the moment that once felt like destruction and realize it was actually liberation. The thing you thought ruined your life redirected it. The thing you thought ended your future created it. The thing you feared most became the beginning of your transformation. Many of the happiest people are not those who avoided hardship. They are those who learned how to begin again. Again after failure. Again after heartbreak. Again after disappointment. Again after loss. Again after uncertainty. Their strength does not come from avoiding storms. It comes from surviving them. Life will force all of us to start over at some point. No one escapes this. The question is not whether change will come. The question is how we will respond when it does. Will we cling to the past? Or will we trust the wisdom hidden inside the change? Will we spend our lives mourning closed doors? Or will we look for the ones opening in front of us? Perhaps the chapter ending in your life right now is not a punishment. Perhaps it is an invitation. An invitation to become stronger. An invitation to become wiser. An invitation to become more authentic. An invitation to discover who you are beyond everything you can lose. And maybe, years from now, you will look back on this difficult season and realize it was one of the greatest gifts life ever gave you, because it forced you to begin again. And in beginning again, you discovered a version of yourself you never would have found otherwise. Before you leave, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever been forced to start over in life? What lesson did that experience teach you? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience may inspire someone who is going through a difficult transition right now. If this video resonated with you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more timeless wisdom from Lao Tzu, Taoism, philosophy, and personal growth. And remember, sometimes life tears down the path you planned so it can reveal the path you were meant to walk.